So this is Regen Lite. This is the FL Studio version. There is also an Ableton version. The plugin is extremely simple. There's only realistically 6 controls that you need to know. The main functionality just comes from the first page. So there are 3 versions, each catering to 3 separate kind of branches of music production, or music genres rather. Neon, the one we have on the left here, caters more so to R&B and pop. Pac-Man, this orange one in the middle, caters more so to trap, but it also has a kind of video gamey sound to it. And then the final one here, the Windows 98 XP looking one, this caters more so to kind of internet opium type sound, which is actually where the sound of the plugin originated. I'll demo the plugin using the Neon one just because that's my favorite personally, and you get quite a range of sound that are very pleasing on the ear as opposed to, like, for example, the XP one, which is a bit more harsh. So the concept of the plugin is the press of one button, which is this generate button here, which generates a completely random sound every time. You're never going to get the same sound twice. You might get sounds that are in the same region or sound similar, but the likelihood that you get 2 of the exact same sound is so small that we're basically calling it impossible. You just press this generate button, and you get a different sound each time. The next thing to focus on is the mods on the left. Shape basically controls the ADSR. What that means in practice is all the way over to the left, you get more of a plucky type sound. All the way over to the right, you get more of a pad type sound. Now you'll notice you don't have total control over the sound. You did hear the sound change, but not aggressively. If you did want the sound to change aggressively, what you would need to do is drag the particle in the middle all the way over to the left, and that way you get more control over the mods. You can see you drag it between the mods section or the random section. Random section, you get very little control over the sound with the mods. So if you do want to control the sound, bring it all the way over to the left, that way. And you bring the shape all the way down, you get pluck. And all the way over to the other side, you get pad. Let's set this in the middle again. Let's focus on tone. Now tone focuses on the brightness of the sound. So all the way down to the left, you get a darker sound, a bit more filtered. All the way over to the right, you get a much more bright sound, much less filtered. I'll show you again with a different sound. That's all the way over to the right. Very filtered all the way over to the left. Now, space controls kind of the spacey effects. That's the easiest way to put it. That means delay, it means reverb, it means a flanger. Now I bring this all the way over to the left, you got quite a dry sound. All the way over to the right, you got a very atmospheric sound. Randomize that. Compare that to 0 space. The final one, width, is the most self-explanatory. You get a mono sound with the width at 0, get a very wide sound with the width all the way up. So let's say I wanted like a dark atmospheric pluck. All I'd need to do is pull the tone all the way down, the shape all the way down, space all the way up. Let's have the width quite wide since we want it atmospheric. So that's one iteration of a dark atmospheric pluck. Generate a new sound. You can see that all of these sounds sound like they come from the same world. Now, if you wanted more variation, you just dial in more randomness. So you can see in practice, these sounds are a lot less plucky because there's more of a sustain to them. They do have that sharp attack, but they don't die out as quickly as the other ones. This one did, but the next one might not. There you go. So that's basically how the plugin works. The only other concept on this main interface that might be harder to grasp is the y-axis. If you bring this down to the clean section, what you're getting is a much more kind of tame version of the sound versus textured, where you're going to get a lot more movement with the sound. Now, because of the fact that this is completely random and all of the sounds you're generating, you know, it's all chance, it's potluck, some sounds are not going to have too much difference between clean and textured. Other sounds, however, are going to have a drastic difference. So let's bring this one all the way down to clean. Kind of like an organ sound with a bit crushed delay. Bring this all the way up. you saw there was a lot more movement. Let's pull the shape up just so we hear that a bit better. So for this sound, the textured nature means a bit more filter movement, but the next one might not have as much difference between the bottom and the top. So that just has a bit more flutter. So it really depends. Now, the only other controls on the front page are just making the sound completely dry by turning the effects off. And then the octave control. You got some basic effects just to tweak the sound on the tweaks page. Pull up the compression, just flattens the sound a bit. Pull up the sidechain. I love the sidechain. I've kind of customized it to fit my personal preference. Sidechain only works when you press play in FL. You'll also notice that the lights start flashing and these kind of dots start moving, just to basically show you that FL is playing. It's just a kind of visual effect. You can turn the lights on and off manually as a kind of Easter egg, but they don't do anything. Now, in the tweaks, you got the sidechain, like I said, you got the compression, like I said. Low cut is not very aggressive whatsoever. It cuts out the muddy lows. So say you've got quite a harsh, muddy sound. Let me pull this down an octave like we heard before. It just cleans up the sound. It takes away some warmth just because that's going to happen if you take out lows. But for sounds that are very muddy and you're not quite liking how they sit in the mix, the low cut is a very simple fix there. Now, my favorite part of the plugin, I was really happy about this when I had a play around and found that I could do this, is turning on the LFO. Now, the LFO isn't like an LFO within the synth sound that's being generated. The LFO that you'll see as soon as I turn to the plugin page, what's happening when it takes effect is it moves the particle about on your screen here. So you can change the speed of the horizontal movement, slow it down a bit. Now horizontally, it moves quite slowly. You can change the amount up, so it moves a lot from left to right. And then you can do the same thing for the vertical movement, so turn the speed up, you're gonna get very fast motion. Turn the amount up, you're gonna get wide motion. So with this kind of effect on the sound, it's gonna drastically change the sound as it moves from left to right and up and down. So compare, for example, you got this sound here, then turn the LFO on. You can hear it evolves throughout, the duration of the LFO. And if you really wanted to mess with the sound, you just turn up the speed and the amount of both. And you get some extreme motion. Turn off the tempo sync if you want it to kind of go crazy and not move with the tempo of your project. Other than that, there's no real other things to focus on. There's a tutorial if you ever get stuck. And there's the map if you want to see how the plugin was made. Lots and lots of work went into this. Some tips just for usage. The generate button, you need to click in the bottom half, whether that be there or there. You'll notice there will be arrows that come up. They don't do anything, they just move this down. You'll notice if you use this for a little while, this looks kind of strangely close to a piano, very zoomed in. That's because it is. When you're building a plugin within FL, that's the only way you can generate random signals. That's essentially an overview of the plugin. Exactly the same controls in Pac-Man and in XP. There are some back-end differences within each, in addition to the visual differences. The back-end will be just so they cater to the different sounds a little bit more. So on average, you're gonna get a brighter, more aggressive sound with the XP one than say with the Neon one. It's just a personal preference of people who would probably move in either this direction or that direction. The Pac-Man one is a kind of midpoint between the two, but then because of the visuals, I wanted to lean it more so into a kind of video gamey type sound, just because I thought there's not really a good enough plugin, especially easily accessible for producers, that caters to that kind of sound. And then other than that, the only difference between the three are the presets. Now, all you need to do is just click on the word presets here, not the word presets here. This won't load up any other sounds. It will change how it looks. That's just going to mess up the internals of the plugin. So you need to press on presets up here, the topmost one. I wouldn't click through them like this. This just takes a while for them to load and you get much less precision in what you want to get. Now presets in here, they're not presets of specific sounds, but they're kind of categories of presets. So if we want to load an XP one, let's go for the ultimate bass preset. This is one that people come back to a lot once I've showed them the plugin. It means that every single time you press generate, you're going to get a new bass sound. Now I'd recommend, if you're going to use bass sounds, go into the plugin settings, turn on monophonic mode. You can play with the glide here, and because it's all stock FL, it means you can do glide notes in the piano roll as well. Go in here, you can change it to an arpeggio. You can do a lot of stock stuff which you couldn't do with a regular VST, which I've loved using personally so far. Anyway, this is just an example. You press, you get a crazy bass, different crazy bass. Let me pull the octave down. Now they're all kind of sub basses. If you wanted pluck basses, I'd go for the pluck bass option. Pluck basses, I would recommend taking off mono, just because of the way FL works with legato played notes. You get an overlap and then it won't play the second one because the envelope has ended. Put this down an octave. So yeah, you get different pluck bass, kind of fitting the opium or internet, or you know, whatever you want to call it, type sound. Let's go to Pac-Man 1 presets. By the way, you can load up presets from any of the 3 plugins within one instance of the plugin. Let's go for dark pluck. Let's get a different dark pluck every time we press generate. So you can hear that kind of video gamey type sound, but mixed in with other just regular trap sounds, I think. My favorite preset on here is the beautiful swell preset. This one kind of side chains and you get a really nice reverb effect, especially when you press play on here. So So this is a case where I'd want to pull up the low cut, just because this sound in particular has got a lot of muddy lows. That's a demo of the plugin. I'm excited for everyone to use it, see how they feel about it, and get to making some sounds. You know, if you want to put out one-shot kits using this, absolutely fine. There's no kind of copyright or anything with this. And yeah, I'm excited to get on and build the full plugin.
What is good, everybody? In this video I will be explaining a little bit about how Regen Lite works, specifically for the Ableton version. Regen Lite, it's a plugin, or Max for Live device in this case, that generates sounds on the fly and lets you manipulate those sounds in a very simple fashion to kind of explore the depths of designing sounds that work well for just everyday music. I'm gonna go straight into it. We got 3 sections, but before that I'm gonna just talk about obviously the generate button, the most self-explanatory thing. This is the sound we got right now. Hit generate. Just get a completely different sound, completely unique sound. Pretty self-explanatory once again. For the first tweakable section, we have this XY pad along with these mod macros. I'll get into those in a second, but for the XY pad, this is what allows you to kind of manipulate the sound and kind of explore different variations of it and kind of tweak it to your liking. And we try to really give you the power of, you know, all the kind of capabilities you might have on a regular synth and kind of just encapsulating it into this one little control. So now, start playing around with this. You start to see kind of how you can explore the same sound that you already have and see where it can go. You know, you can try it again. So we're really just playing a lot with the details of the sound. How it works is every time you hit generate, there's 2 sounds being created. There's a completely random sound, which you get when you're all the way hovering to the right with the XY pad right here, and another sound that's generated but is following kind of these macro knobs over here. So if I just play this, you get this sound. So what's happening over here is the sound is still being generated randomly, but it's staying in line with these. So for instance, shape, This is a all-in-one ADSR. So all the way to the left, you're getting a plucky sound, and then all the way to the right, you're getting a more pad sounding sound, and in the middle, you're kind of getting just like regular keys type of sound. If I have it all the way to the bottom, you're gonna get something more plucky. Every time you hit generate, it's gonna be consistently plucky. And if I keep playing, you'll see as I move this, start to get something more pad sounding. And the cool thing now is if I hit generate again, it's gonna kind of give you more of that. So, you know, it kind of, I guess, controls what kind of randomness you're getting to a degree. So yeah, that's the shape knob. The tone knob controls the brightness of the sound. So the more to the left it is, you're gonna get something more dark, and then to the right, you're gonna get something more bright. Space controls the ambience of the sound. Obviously, to the left, you're gonna get something dry. To the right, you're gonna get something more ambient. And width is self-explanatory. All the way down to the left, you're gonna get something mono right in the middle, and then all the way up, you're gonna get something wide. So for example, let's say I wanted to create a dark ambient pluck sound. I would have shape all the way down, tone all the way down, space, maybe I won't go all the way up, I'll go like up here somewhere. And then width, let's say I want like a really wide pluck, and then hit generate, you get something like that. And then every time you hit generate, you're still getting the same thing. Let's say I like everything I'm hearing, I just want it to be mono every time. Boom, drop that down. Now you're getting it straight in the middle. Every sound, same thing. Mind you, this is happening when you have this all the way to the left, when it's touching the side here. Once I move over back to the right, you're gonna hear less and less of that. So if I say move it over here, you're kind of getting back to the random sound that was also created. And I'll get into why it's cool that we have this in a bit. In terms of what you're getting when you're going up and down, when you go all the way down here, you're getting, I guess, something more sustained and regular. And as you move it up, you're getting a little bit more modulation on things like tremolo and like, I think, yeah, a little bit of crushing, like little small details that might separate the sound, make it more unique. So honestly, the y-axis is a little bit more minor in terms of the changes, but I think when you add everything together, it really just gives the sound more depth and more complexity without doing too much of the very detailed work that comes with sound design. For the second section over here, we have this LFO. What this is doing is modulating the movement of this XY control. So if I have it turned on, you start to see some movement. You can control how far the movement goes with the two amount knobs and how fast it goes with the two speed knobs based on each axis. So if I turn up the X all the way, it's gonna move all the way left, all the way to the right. And then the speed is just how fast it goes. The Y-axis, same thing, how fast it goes up and down with the speed. You can also sync it. You kind of hear that as the beat is playing. Preview of the sound. And then the X off and Y off is just controlling where the movement starts. So if I wanted something that was hovering all the way to the left here, I'd move X off all the way to the left, and you get a movement that's closer to the left side. Vice versa, if I move it to the right, you get that. If I wanted something in the top right corner, move both to the right, and you start getting this movement up here. So you gotta play around with what type of modulation you want. Let's say I wanted it to, I'm gonna put it all the way down here. Let's say I want to keep it plucky again. The thing I like about the LFO is it kind of lets the sound evolve over time a lot. Also, the other unique thing about this is as that's happening, you can generate new sounds and it follows the same movement. So let's say I have the sound playing, hit generate. So now you start getting more wonky, weird sounds. Like the possibilities get a little more interesting. You're kind of carrying over the modulation to other sounds that you're generating, which is pretty cool. For this last section, the FL version of Regen, it had a sidechain, low cut, and compression control. We wanted to switch it up a bit for the Max for Live version, and we just incorporated an extra XY pad. And all this does is it morphs the settings of whatever effects are generated for each sound. So if I have this playing, there's a lot of effects going on here. start to hear kind of what's going on. I think in this one it sounds like there's a delay, a little bit of maybe some chorus, and this is essentially in this case messing around with the time and the feedback of the delay, etc. What this is controlling changes every time, because every time you hit generate, a new set of effects are being generated, so you don't even know what you're getting, but you're gonna be able to control something. So this is just kind of like a little fun control to mess around with. And then we got an FX switch, lets you bypass the effects. If you just want to generate dry sounds, I'll play with it a little more. You can get some fun stuff going on with this for sure. Another cool thing you can try is just like throwing an extra LFO over here and literally just mapping it to one of these knobs. It already lets you kind of just get some movement that would be impossible to create otherwise. If I like slow this down, like I don't even know, you wouldn't be able to create this simply with just these knobs. This can help you get some way more even interesting kind of movement with it. But yeah, the possibilities are really endless. And if you also want, you can even go into, I guess, the code of it and see how we created it and kind of see all the engines and all the effects and how everything's mapped. If you want to kind of hack it to sound a little bit more like how you want, you can go ahead and do that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this was informative. If you have any more questions, you can always DM us at the Loophole Co on Instagram, or me personally. Yeah, appreciate you guys, and hopefully you find some use with this tool.